Most people live their entire lives chained by illusions about wealth, success, and the power they think they possess. They believe the rich became rich by luck, by talent, or by playing fair. But this is the lie that keeps them obedient. Tonight, I will reveal to you the truths the powerful never speak aloud. Brutal truths. Truths that the wealthy guard like a weapon, because if the common man understood them, he would no longer remain common. Listen carefully. For once you know what the rich truly know, you cannot return to the world you knew before. You will see money, power, and people with a new pair of eyes. Eyes unclouded by illusion and sharpened by strategy. The idea that wealth is a weapon rather than a comfort is one of the most misunderstood truths in human society. And Machiavelli would argue that this misunderstanding is precisely why so many people remain powerless. Most individuals imagine money as something that brings ease, pleasure, and safety. They dream of soft living, effortless days, and the feeling of being cared for by the world. But this is the fantasy of those who will never rise above mediocrity, because they treat wealth as an escape rather than a tool. Power belongs not to the one who enjoys money, but to the one who uses it to shape outcomes, influence others, and control the direction of events. To understand this brutal truth, you must first recognize that comfort weakens a man. When money is used only to purchase comfort, it begins to consume the one who holds it. He becomes attached to pleasure, fearful of risk, and dependent on maintaining his lifestyle. This dependency makes him vulnerable. A man who fears losing comfort will never dare to take the bold actions required to gain real power. In Machiavelli's view, a ruler cannot afford softness, because comfort breeds hesitation, and hesitation invites defeat. Wealth used for comfort is nothing more than a seat cushion in a battlefield, meaningless, and incapable of stopping an incoming blade. But when wealth is treated as a weapon, everything changes. Money becomes influence, and influence becomes control. A weapon is something you use to defend yourself, expand your territory, and deter aggression. The powerful understand this instinctively. They do not hoard money to feel rich. They deploy it strategically to become untouchable. Money is used to buy time, expertise, alliances, and opportunities. It can extinguish threats before they become visible. It can make competitors dependent. It can turn enemies into allies and allies into obedient supporters. When money functions as a weapon, it becomes a silent force shaping the destiny of the one who wields it. This is why the wealthy remain wealthy. They are not playing the same game as the common man. The masses think money buys shoes, cars, status, and entertainment. But the elite think money buys access, protection, information, and authority. A poor man might save money for a vacation. A powerful man invests money to ensure he never needs a vacation from the life he built. One buys comfort. The other buys control. Another harsh truth is that treating money as a weapon demands emotional detachment. Those who become powerful see money without sentiment. They do not mourn its loss if it was lost strategically. They do not cling to every coin as if it were a lifeline. They move money in and out of deals with precision, understanding that a weapon is only useful when it is used, not stored away. Fear of losing wealth is the chain that traps the weak. Courage to use wealth decisively is the sword that frees the strong. Machiavelli would also point out that the appearance of wealth is irrelevant without the capability to use it effectively. A man may own luxurious possessions yet have no real influence. Another may appear modest yet command resources that can shift political, social, or economic structures. It is never what you show. It is what you control. The world respects power, not decoration. Those who treat wealth as mere decoration become prisoners of their own vanity, while those who treat wealth as a weapon rise quietly, efficiently, and often invisibly. Ultimately, the first brutal truth is simple. A man who uses wealth for pleasure will always be ruled by the man who uses wealth for power. The second brutal truth reveals something most people never notice. The rich keep their power by keeping the masses distracted. This is not an accident. It is a deliberate mechanism built into society, repeated across history, and perfected by those who understand human nature. Machiavelli would say that controlling people is not achieved through force alone, but by shaping what they pay attention to. When minds are busy with trivialities, they cannot see the structures that keep them weak. Distraction is therefore not merely entertainment. It is a tool of governance, and those who wield it maintain an advantage that feels invisible to everyone else. Most people imagine they are free because they can choose what to watch, think about, or pursue. Yet these choices are often designed for them. Trends, scandals, celebrity drama, mindless entertainment, and endless consumer temptations are all crafted to keep the mind occupied with noise. A distracted population does not question. It consumes. It does not notice patterns of control. It reacts emotionally to the next episode, the next post, the next fabricated outrage. Every moment spent in distraction is a moment not spent studying power, building skills, or understanding how wealth operates. This is exactly how the rich maintain their edge. Machiavelli understood that distraction breeds obedience. A ruler who gives the people enough pleasure and spectacle can govern without resistance. Even in modern society, nothing has changed. The forms are different, screens instead of colosseums, influencers instead of jesters, but the objective remains the same. Keep the public entertained so they remain easily guided. When people are emotionally invested in the trivial, they become blind to the strategic. The wealthy also use distraction to hide their methods. They rarely talk about how they accumulate power. Instead, they promote surface-level stories of luck, talent, or overnight success because these narratives keep people dreaming instead of thinking. A dreamer waits, a thinker acts, a distracted person hopes, a focused person strategizes. As long as the public remains caught in cycles of passive consumption, the rich never have to reveal the systems they use to grow stronger. Another brutal reality is that distraction prevents unity. People divided by entertainment preferences, political drama, and manufactured conflicts cannot unite against the structures that oppress them. When the masses argue with each other, the ruling class faces no threat. Machiavelli warns that a divided population is the easiest to control. And distraction is the simplest method for ensuring people stay divided. The more emotionally charged the distraction, the more effectively it works. Outrage becomes a leash. Curiosity becomes a cage. The rich, on the other hand, cultivate concentration. They avoid noise, protect their time, and direct their attention toward information that increases their advantage. They think long-term while the masses focus on the next hour. They study markets while others scroll. They build networks while others debate strangers online. They invest while others consume. This difference in attention creates a difference in destiny. Distraction is also profitable. Every minute someone spends consuming entertainment enriches someone else. Companies, platforms, and institutions generate massive wealth from attention. The poor give time, and the rich convert that time into money. When you understand this exchange, you see why distraction is encouraged at every level of society. It keeps the economic hierarchy intact. The tragic truth is that people willingly participate in their own disempowerment because distraction feels good. It offers escape, it numbs discomfort, but it also destroys focus, and without focus, one cannot build anything of substance. The rich do not hide their secrets in locked vaults. They hide them in plain sight, buried under layers of noise, knowing most people will never look deeper than the surface. In the end, the powerful stay powerful, not because they are smarter or luckier, but because they guard their attention while everyone else gives theirs away freely. A distracted mind is a controlled mind, and those who control attention control the world. But Machiavelli would remind you that desire without discipline is powerless, and in many cases destructive. Desire makes a man chase illusions. Discipline forces him to confront reality. And wealth, being rooted in reality, always follows the person who can control himself, rather than the one who is controlled by his impulses. Most people are driven by immediate wants. They want comfort now, entertainment now, quick results now. Their desires dictate their actions, and this lack of control makes them predictable. Predictability is weakness, because the world can manipulate a man easily when it knows exactly how he will respond to temptation. The powerful understand this and design environments filled with temptations. Endless consumption, impulsive spending, emotional reactions, and constant distractions keep the majority trapped in the cycle of desire, never moving toward anything substantial. They are always reacting, never deciding. A man dragged by desire can never compete with a man guided by discipline. Discipline is the ability to act according to long-term strategy instead of short-term emotion. It means choosing the harder path today to gain the advantage tomorrow. Machiavelli believed that the ruler who cannot govern himself cannot govern anything else. The same applies to money. If you cannot control your habits, your time, your spending, but this isolation is exactly what creates strength. The disciplined person becomes someone who can endure boredom, overcome difficulty, and persist long after others quit. Money gravitates toward endurance because endurance creates stability, and stability creates wealth. Discipline is also tied to mastery. Wealth follows those who master skills, industries, or systems. Mastery requires repetition, patience, and long-term focus, all of which conflict with the impulsive nature of desire. While others are chasing the next distraction, the disciplined individual is sharpening his mind, improving his craft, and strengthening the foundations of his future. Over time, this creates something powerful, compounding growth. On the other hand, environments filled with ambition, competence, and discipline force you to evolve. Being around people who are smarter, more driven, or more strategic exposes you to new ways of thinking. It challenges your ego, disrupts your old habits, and raises your expectations. The poor often live in environments that teach scarcity, while the rich grow up in environments that teach strategy. These teachings become internalized early and guide behavior for years. Breaking free requires deliberately exposing yourself to new influences, new ideas, and new standards. Machiavelli understood that power thrives where ambition is valued and collapses where comfort dominates. The fifth brutal truth exposes a strategy that the majority of people overlook entirely. The rich exploit what others ignore. This principle is deceptively simple, yet it is one of the most powerful levers in the accumulation of wealth and influence. While most people chase obvious opportunities, follow trends, and imitate the masses, the wealthy scan the world for what remains unseen, undervalued, or dismissed. Machiavelli would argue that a successful ruler understands that the masses are preoccupied with appearances, emotions, and distractions, leaving vast spaces unclaimed for the cunning and observant. Wealth does not flow to those who follow the crowd. It flows to those who see what others cannot or will not see. Most individuals are conditioned to look where everyone else looks. Jobs, investments, markets, and industries that are popular receive all attention, all energy, and all capital. Competition in these areas is intense, and the rewards are often diluted. The masses are drawn to what is flashy, familiar, and immediately gratifying. The rich, however, know that real advantage lies in observing the blind spots, the areas where people do not notice potential, where fear, laziness, or ignorance prevents others from acting. The moment others ignore an opportunity, a powerful individual can claim it quietly, with minimal resistance, and watch it compound into wealth and influence over time. This principle also requires patience. Opportunities that are ignored are often ignored for reasons that seem logical to the crowd. They appear risky, inconvenient, or uninteresting. The average person avoids them out of fear or indifference, but the wealthy evaluate the same situation differently. They weigh long-term gain against short-term discomfort. They are willing to move where others hesitate, to act where others freeze, and to invest where others overlook. This patience, coupled with strategic vision, transforms ignored opportunities into instruments of lasting power. Another critical element is observation. Exploiting what others ignore demands constant attention to detail and a willingness to question assumptions. The rich study patterns, behavior, and systems to understand where inefficiencies, gaps, and vulnerabilities exist. Every ignored asset, undervalued property, untapped market, and misunderstood skill represents a potential avenue to wealth. To the untrained eye, these areas are invisible. To the strategic mind, they are treasures waiting to be claimed. Machiavelli would argue that this is the essence of political and financial genius. To see what others cannot and act before they realize its value. The principle also applies to human relationships and networks. People often ignore those they deem insignificant, dismissing them as powerless or irrelevant. The wealthy recognize that these same individuals can become critical allies, sources of information, or gateways to influence if approached with strategy and patience. While the average person overlooks potential connections, the shrewd individual transforms neglect into advantage. Every dismissed person becomes an opportunity to build loyalty, gather intelligence, or create leverage. Moreover, exploiting what others ignore requires decisiveness. Recognition alone is not enough. The wealthy act swiftly once a blind spot is identified. Hesitation allows others to catch up, to recognize the opportunity, and to compete. Acting where others hesitate creates a temporary monopoly, a period in which value accumulates rapidly. Machiavelli would point out that fortune favors those who can combine observation with bold, calculated action. To wait too long is to surrender advantage. To act recklessly is to squander it. Only the disciplined, perceptive, and strategic individual can navigate this balance successfully. This principle also explains why the rich seem to understand systems in ways the average person cannot. They are always operating in spaces that others avoid, finding leverage where others see only obstacles. By focusing on the unseen, the undervalued, and the dismissed, they create wealth quietly and steadily while the majority chases fleeting trends and popular illusions. The world rewards those who dare to see what others refuse to notice and punishes those who blindly follow the crowd. Ultimately, exploiting what others ignore transforms ordinary intelligence into extraordinary advantage. It turns patience into power, perception into influence, and invisibility into wealth. It is the secret that separates the masses from the masters. The sixth brutal truth reveals a principle that the rich and powerful have understood for centuries. Power grows when you learn in silence. Machiavelli observed that those who broadcast their strategies, their plans, or their ambitions are often the first to be undermined. Knowledge, when exposed prematurely, becomes a liability rather than an asset. The masses tend to speak too freely, offering opinions, advice, or gossip that dilute their focus and weaken their position. In contrast, the wealthy and strategic understand that accumulating power quietly allows them to act decisively while others remain unaware of their capabilities, intentions, and resources. Learning in silence begins with the recognition that information is power, and power is maximized when it is not revealed. Most people operate under the illusion that sharing what they know or showcasing their ideas will bring support, validation, or faster results. They boast, debate, or advertise their intentions, believing visibility equals progress. Machiavelli, however, warns that visibility invites opposition. The moment a plan is public, competitors, detractors, or rivals gain time to prepare, disrupt, or exploit vulnerabilities. Silence, therefore, becomes a shield. It protects the strategist from interference and allows them to accumulate advantage quietly until the moment of execution. This principle also cultivates observation and discernment. When one learns in silence, one is forced to listen more, watch more, and absorb more than the average person. Conversations, behaviors, and patterns reveal far more than declarations of intent. While the majority is speaking, reacting, or seeking validation, the wise individual gathers knowledge, understands motivations, and maps opportunities that others cannot see. This quiet accumulation of intelligence enables the wealthy to make decisions based not on emotion or guesswork, but on careful calculation. Machiavelli emphasizes that foresight is the weapon of the prudent. Those who learn quietly build foresight, while the loud are left exposed. Furthermore, learning in silence encourages strategic patience. Most people act impulsively because they feel the need to announce progress, to show effort, or to gain immediate recognition. This impatience leads to mistakes, overexposure, and missed opportunities. By contrast, the disciplined individual delays action until the conditions are optimal, until knowledge has been fully acquired, and until the environment is favorable. Silence fosters this patience because it removes the pressure to perform publicly or conform to external expectations. In essence, quiet learning allows the strategist to control timing. And timing, Machiavelli would insist, is often more critical than talent or resources. Another dimension of this truth is that silence amplifies influence. People often underestimate the psychological effect of restraint. Those who reveal too much lose an aura of mystery and authority. Those who speak little but act decisively are perceived as more capable, intelligent, and commanding. The wealthy understand this instinctively. Their silence is a form of power projection. Others reveal themselves too early, showing weaknesses, intentions, or desires that can be exploited. The silent observer, however, remains inscrutable, forcing competitors to guess and misstep while the strategist accumulates advantage unseen. Learning in silence also means avoiding unnecessary confrontation and minimizing unnecessary exposure. Many conflicts arise from talking too much, declaring opinions, or demonstrating knowledge. Machiavelli recognized that words can create enemies as easily as they can create allies. The discreet learner avoids such hazards, using information strategically rather than broadcasting it indiscriminately. Knowledge becomes a tool to manipulate circumstances rather than a weapon pointed at oneself. The wealthy understand that restraint ensures flexibility, allowing them to pivot and adapt without committing prematurely to a visible stance. Ultimately, silence cultivates both skill and freedom. It allows one to think without interference, plan without pressure, and act without obstruction. Knowledge kept in reserve is power magnified, and the quiet learner is always steps ahead of the loud and distracted. While the world obsesses with visibility, approval, and noise, the strategically silent individual builds foundations that cannot be challenged until the moment they choose to act. It is in this quiet accumulation of wisdom, strategy, and insight that lasting influence is forged, unseen by those who remain trapped in the folly of speaking too soon. You have now glimpsed the truths the rich guard with silence, strategy, and relentless discipline. The world rewards those who see what others ignore, act when others hesitate, and master themselves while the masses chase illusions. Power is not given. It is taken. Wealth is not inherited. It is claimed. And influence is not revealed. It is wielded in quiet, calculated precision. Remember this. Desire alone will never create fortune. Distraction will never build strength, and knowledge spoken too soon becomes a liability. To rise above the ordinary, you must think like the strategist, act like the patient, and move like the unseen hand shaping events while the world sleeps. The choice is yours. Remain a spectator in the theater of power, or step into the shadows, learn, prepare, and claim what the careless and distracted will never understand. The truths are harsh, the path is unforgiving, but those who embrace them become unstoppable. You have been warned. Now it is time to decide whether you will remain ordinary or become dangerous.